been sold the idea that financial independence is all about some number on your account statement, or even worse, that you don't qualify because of where you started out. That's just not true. It's not about some well-kept secret of the wealthy. It's about finding the right information and knowing how to apply it. On the Get Ready for the Future show, we're answering your questions so you can start making real financial change today. The journey to true financial independence begins right here, and it starts with you.
Helping people discover, protect, and share true financial independence. That is the goal of the Get Ready for the Future show and the goal of GenWealth Financial Advisors. Welcome in, everybody. John Shrewsbury and Janet Walker. And Janet, before the show got started, I made the comment the inmates are running the asylum.
Yes, here we are.
Here we are.
They've given us mics and let us loose.
Who in the world let Scott Inman out of the building? I don't know what happened there. But
we'll track him down.
Yeah, we appreciate you joining us anyway, even though Scott, the professional, is not here. John and Janet, who actually started the show way back when, are here, and we're going to try to plow through some questions that you've got about retirement, investments, whatever may be on your mind. We love answering those questions. And first up is a question from Sandra in Rogers. Sandra writes, "My husband and I have talked about moving out of state when we retire and going someplace by the beach." I think that's a fairly common conversation these days.
I think you've talked about this with your family.
I've talked about it for many, many years. But anyway, what considerations do we need to make in our plan to make that happen? Well, Sandra, I will tell you that clearly you better have, 3 suitcases full of cash when you go, because those folks at the beach, those folks at the beach have gotten crazy with their ideas of how much those houses are worth. Janet, I remember going down to 30A on vacation probably 2 or 3 years ago now. We stayed in a condo down there, and one of my real estate friends said, "Oh, you need to go and check this out and go around and take a look at some houses." So they go and start showing us these $1 million plus houses, and I'm like, okay,
postage stamp sized $1 million plus houses.
Yes, and so I got creative one day, and I was like, okay, let me pull this up on my phone, and that same house that we were in that was $1.2 million back then. Mm-hmm. 2 years before sold for $550,000. And my comment was, I know you guys saw me coming, but you didn't see that far.
Yeah.
That's just ridiculous. So beach towns are way more expensive than you could ever imagine. I think another thing that you've got to think about there, Janet, is taking a look at what the situation is as far as income taxes are concerned, because you could be going to a higher income tax state, although Florida, which is probably one of the most popular beach destinations for people in Arkansas, Florida actually has no income tax.
Along kind of the same thought process, same line of thinking, you also need to be aware about any property taxes and POA fees. Basically, where we're going is your expenses are going to be different than they are in Arkansas, and obviously they're going to be higher, but be sure that you're thinking about the things that might be completely different. Like if you're in a neighborhood right now that does not have POA fees, you might be in one then that has substantial POA fees. You might also run into substantial property taxes. So just be sure that you understand the lay of the land, so to speak, in terms of the cost of actually owning a beach home.
Janet, I think we need to be careful here, because we could sound like the negative Nellies about this.
Just trying to be realistic about know what your numbers are.
Yeah, I think you've got to be informed about the situation. I was not informed by the fact that houses have doubled in price or more so during COVID and that type of thing. Right. And so it was a real shock to me that things were way expensive. I think you also need to plan for travel expenses to come back and see grandkids, wherever grandkids may be. If the beach is further away from the grandkids, then you're going to add some expense there as well.
Another thing I would ask Sandra in this scenario is we don't know how long you have until retirement. And so, obviously the farther out from retirement you are, then the more time you have to prepare for the expenses of living on the beach and living in a beach town. So that's something to consider and think through. You could use the equity in your current home to help you get into a beach house. If you've got gains on the value of your home, which is highly likely, I don't know how long you've owned it and what your situation is there, but it's highly likely that you have gains built into that. So you avoid paying taxes on the capital gains on the first $500,000, assuming that, Sandra, you and your husband are married filing jointly. For those listening who are single, the limit on that is $250,000. But to be able to take those capital gains and that along with the existing equity to put that into the next home could be very beneficial to you.
Obviously, the attraction in any beach town is that little strip of land has the sand on it and the water coming in and all of that. But you also have to think about what the rest of the town is like.
Right.
Because you're going to be living in that town. You're going to be living in a situation where you've got churches to go to. You've got, are there any events going on? Are there concerts and things of that nature?
You're a big concert guy.
I am.
Yeah.
And they got to be on the tour circuit, or that's going to be out for me. But,
yeah, as much as you love the beach, if you had to give up, I'll just call it proximity to concerts or concert availability, you probably wouldn't do it.
Be a tough call for me.
Yeah.
Definitely so. Now, I think the other thing that you've also got to think about is, yes, this is a great destination for you to go for maybe a vacation or an extended stay, but do you really want to live there, or do you want more variety in your retirement years? You know, a lot of people use, timeshares and things of that nature that they can bounce around to, things like that. And I'm certainly not necessarily advocating a timeshare, but you can do a Verbo in different places.
Yes,
and really move around to some extent and have a lot of variety for yourself in retirement. And I think that's something that also has to be considered in this situation, because look, retirement is supposed to be fun, and the last thing you want to do is to get someplace and yes, you enjoy the beach, but prices are double what they are where you're from, and grocery prices are accelerated, and all those things are all things to consider in this decision.
John, I would say ultimately the financial side of this all comes down to having an income plan. It's so important to understand what your expenses are going to be, and then where that income to cover those expenses, where that income is going to come from. So be sure if the beach, the beach home is part of your desired plan, then be sure that you have an income plan to be able to meet that need along the way.
Yeah, and I think that if you take a look at a beach town that you really do like and really do enjoy, then I think that's something that you probably ought to begin to sit down with your financial advisor, work through the details of it, and understand where you are positionally as far as your finances are concerned, and can you go and actually do that? Because one of the things that you just absolutely do not want to do is get over your head in something and have to unwind this dream that you had about, retiring to the beach and all of that type of thing, and then end up, sitting right back in Arkansas or whatever the case may be, and have the regret of having to tried that and failed to actually make it happen. So clearly having that retirement income plan is something that is necessary, but also just counting the cost and making sure that you are sure that this move is the right move for you. If you've got questions, we've got answers for you here at the Get Ready for the Future show. You can call or text those questions to us at 501-381-5228, 501-381-5228. Or you can email us at show@getreadyforthefuture.com. Your questions come in, we research the answers and bring them to you here on the Get Ready for the Future show. Our next question comes from Jerry in Bryant. Jerry writes, how do you think about Roth versus traditional benefits when you have a sizable pension? I'm expecting to have about $100,000 per year pension plus sizable assets. Janet, I think that people think about things in retirement in sort of segments or buckets, or almost doing mental accounting, but all of it really has to go into a retirement income plan.
It does. To go to your bucket way of thinking, even though we use buckets for investments, it's a different type of bucketing. How many times can we say bucket in the show on one day? We're gonna set a record here today.
I told you the inmates are in charge of the asylum.
So when you think about the way most most people, in the way that you're referencing this, John, when they think about their income sources and buckets, they look at their Social Security and like he's got his Social Security income and she's got hers, and they think of those as separate buckets. We need to look at that as a household income source. And also in that same bucket of household income sources, we need to include the pension. So pension and Social Security for both spouses. Perhaps both of them have a pension, perhaps both of them have Social Security. It is possible that one has a pension and does not have Social Security. That also happens from time to time, depending on who your employer was. But it's very important to look at those as guaranteed income sources that will be there to cover your required needs in retirement, and to think about this as a holistic picture of your income planning, and it goes along with what other investments you have. But let's circle back, because I think he's really probably focused on really a tax question at the end of this, John, because he's asking, how do you think about Roth versus traditional benefits? And the difference on that when you're withdrawing income in retirement is that those traditional IRA dollars are taxable and the Roth IRA dollars at distribution are not. So let's develop that a little bit.
So Jerry is not really clear as to whether he has Roth or traditional assets at this particular point in time. Maybe he has both, not sure. But if you stop and think about the fact that your pension is going to provide about $100,000 a year in income, you're probably not going to be able to make a Roth contribution right now if you're drawing that pension, and you might have a couple of other options. Now, he talked about sizable assets in his question, but we don't know what that really looks like. But let's talk a little bit about where he's at as far as those assets are concerned, and let's make an assumption right off the bat that those assets are in traditional IRA dollars. So when Jerry withdraws from a traditional IRA, then that income, whatever amount that he withdraws, is going to go right on top of that pension income of $100,000. And so that's just going to raise his taxable income. Conversely, if he has Roth money, then he's going to be in a situation where whatever he withdraws from the Roth is going to be tax-free. Mm-hmm. Now, the question then becomes, okay, can you do a conversion? And the question is not, can you do a conversion? The answer is yes, you can do a conversion. But the question is that really the right thing to do, Janet?
Yeah, because anytime that you convert, you need to, and just to be clear what we're talking about, converting from traditional dollars to Roth dollars. So still within an IRA umbrella, but it's traditional IRA versus Roth IRA. And in doing that, anytime the amount that you convert from the traditional amount, from the traditional account to the Roth account, you're going to need to be able to pay the tax obligation for that out of pocket. So if somebody converts $100,000, they need to have on the sidelines in non-qualified assets money that they can pay the taxes on that conversion, which is why, John, we rarely ever do a six-figure conversion amount. Yeah. Normally we take this in smaller increments, and frankly, we usually never get done with the conversion process. And I know that sounds weird, but if you think about the example I always use in explaining this to clients is, let's use a $100,000 account, and let's say that you decide, okay, we're going to convert 10% of this. So we take $10,000 and we convert that to Roth money. And then over the next year, that $90,000, let's say it grows by 10%. Well, now we're back up to 99. So we're almost back to where we started. So you can continue this conversion process for a long time, but you have to be able to start the conversation with, how much can I pay out of pocket on this? And John, one of the other things that I think it's important for Jerry to consider as he walks through this process is the tax diversification question, that if you have an opportunity to get additional Roth dollars between now and retirement, that is going to give you more tax diversification than what you currently have, because your pension is likely fully taxable when you withdraw whatever amount that you are taking as income. So another possibility that you have is, if you're still contributing to, I'm going to loosely say 401k, regardless of where you work, the corporate retirement plan, whatever label that may fall under for you, if you have the ability to contribute Roth dollars, now the match is still going to be in pre-tax dollars from your employer, but if you have the ability to put in Roth dollars, then that just puts you in a position so that in retirement you do have some Roth assets from which you can pull to supplement your pension income.
Janet, I think this is going to get in the weeds just a little bit, but I think it does bear discussing in since he brought this up, and we don't really know how old Jerry is. We don't know how close to retirement he is. But you have to stop and think about what is the benefit of a Roth conversion. Well, the opportunity for you to pay taxes now on that money instead of in the future when tax rates might be higher, and that certainly is a positive. But the other thing that you've got to think about and look at in a Roth conversion, or a conversion from a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA, let's take someone who's in the 22% tax bracket, and let's say they convert $100,000. Let's say they have the money on the sideline to pay the taxes on the $100,000 of income. So they convert that $100,000. So they have paid $22,000 in taxes if they are in that 22% tax bracket, because that conversion is going to sit right on top of whatever income they've got right now.
Right.
So now they're going to pay that $22,000. Well, the question becomes, how long do I need to let that Roth sit there and grow in order for me to be able to generate tax-free income that would be more than what I had to pay in taxes when I did the conversion? So oftentimes we think about Roth conversions as being something for younger people or people that have time to allow that tax-free income to be generated by the conversion, the converted dollars.
You know, this doesn't play into Jerry's question, but I'm going to elaborate on this a little bit for other listeners to whom this might apply. If you have had a job change and you did a rollover, it is very common these days to see a combination of Roth dollars and traditional dollars coming out of your employer plan. So you do a rollover and you go from having the 401k to having a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA. The younger you are, the more it makes sense to do this approach that John is talking about, where you look at those traditional assets and you gradually, just a little bit at a time, convert that. Even if, and I know this sounds small and just like negligible to use this approach, but even if you converted $2,000 or $3,000 a year, if you're 30 years old, you think about the impact on your tax-free income by the time you get to retirement, it is significant. So just consider that is an option over time for you.
Yeah, if you just kind of played out the compound interest effect of this, let's say you converted $10,000, and before you converted, you calculated what the future value of that money is going to be for you at retirement. Let's say it's $100,000. Well, if you convert, now you've got $100,000 of tax-free income as opposed to $100,000 of taxable income.
Exactly.
And so by enduring a little bit of pain right now to pay the taxes on that Roth conversion could mean great things for you if you have enough time to let that conversion actually grow and allow it to generate that tax-free income that you're looking for.
Yeah, if you're one of those people that goes around talking about how much of a refund that you get every year, you might want to consider doing a conversion and utilizing some of that now.
This is the question of the week from Jerry, and congratulations to Jerry. We're going to allow him to have one of these wonderful Get Ready for the Future Show tumblers. You have the coffee cup.
I do, but we send out the tumbler.
Yeah,
I think the tumbler mails more easily.
I think it probably does. It doesn't get broken in the mail or anything of that nature. But Jerry, if you will email us at show@getreadyforthefuture.com and claim your tumbler, we would be more than happy to send that out for you. All right, let's go to our next question. This is Daryl who texted in a question, and Daryl says, I'm a firefighter with a state pension. Should I be more aggressive with my 457 investments since I have a safety net in retirement that will cover my basic necessities? Daryl, that is a great question. As a matter of fact, that's
Yeah.
a very astute question because I think he's dead on right.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say, just to clarify, we're not a fan of the word aggressive in terms of investments, but I do think we're in agreement with each other. We rarely ever have investments that are truly considered aggressive, even for our younger clients, but we would definitely go with a more growth-oriented approach. And I'll also say this, just for people out there listening who heard us say 457 and they're not firefighters and they're like, what in the world are y'all talking about? This is their version of a 401k because of the type of employer they have. A fireman or a policeman, they both have a 457 plan instead of a 401k. So yes, we would absolutely encourage you to be more growth focused because you do have that base level of income that your pension is going to provide to you in the future.
Can I play Mr. Investment over here for
Sure.
just a second?
Sure.
The pension is actually a fixed income instrument. Now,
Yeah.
most people don't think of it that way, but that's
It
exactly
is.
what it is. It is a fixed income instrument. It is a fixed amount of income coming into you at retirement. It acts much like a bond would if you held a really nice bond that was paying a good interest rate. That's really what a pension is, except you don't get any money back like you would at a bond when it matures.
From
Your
the ownership of the bond.
That's
Yeah.
right. You actually are just clipping the coupon or collecting the interest. So if you think about that pension as being a fixed income part of your portfolio, then that's probably a sizable amount on a current value basis. That pension is probably a sizable amount of your overall portfolio. So I think it does pay to be in an aggressive or a more growth-oriented position with your other investment dollars. And I think that sometimes is a little bit hard to take for people because they see the value of that changing up and down with the markets when they don't really see the value of their pension changing. Most pensions just continue to go up with your years of service.
Right. There is some psychology to it, but it sounds like Daryl is a step ahead in that way. He's already thinking in this direction. But if you think about, and there are more than three buckets when we really do this for somebody, but to kind of simplify the approach that we normally take is we look at what guaranteed income sources you have, like Social Security and or a pension, and then we have buckets to cover the first 10 years, the next 5, and then years 15 and beyond. And that first 10 years normally is very conservatively invested, and we call that your grocery money. You know, it's something that we joke about. You don't want to go to Vegas with your grocery money because we need to be able to buy groceries, right? So this is very conservatively invested, and then we can get more growth oriented the farther along we go. In your case, we know that we're going to have grocery money. It's going to be there. And so in this approach, we can take a little bit different mindset in how we invest preparing for retirement. We know that your required expenses are covered, and you may even have some to cover the additional desired expenses. And so the farther out from retirement you are, we may just even avoid that first bucket, so to speak, for a period of time. And then as you get closer to retirement, you do still want to have at that point some conservative investments because it's going to provide your additional income on top of the pension.
Janet, most people think that, man, I would love to have a pension. That'd be the great. I'll oftentimes talk to clients about, okay, if you had two jobs and they paid exactly the same thing, this one has a pension, this one has a 401k, which one would you take? Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, I want the pension. But it's really important that you have both.
It is.
It is really critical that. Daryl thinks about this way. He has a 457 plan, so 401k, 457 interchangeable.
Right.
The pension is a fixed income asset, as we said. You get that check every month, and that is it. And in most cases, unless you work for a government entity, most pensions are not indexed for inflation. So you've got not only the money that you need to have additional income above your pension, you're also trying to offset inflation with those other dollars.
Even the ones that are set up to take inflation into effect, there are still ancillary expenses. I have permission to use my mom as an example on this. She's a retired teacher, and so with that role in the state of Arkansas, that means that she has a teacher's pension and she has if I can say it, she has Social Security coming in
Easy for you
as
to say.
well. And so both of those are regular, predictable checks that come in, and both of them get an inflationary increase. Social Security, there periodically, once in a blue moon, sometimes when it doesn't get that increase, but most years, both of those are going to have an increase. But she will tell you that she utilizes other resources to pay for things like property taxes, John. It's something that it's not a monthly expense, but once a year there's this larger than normal amount that she has to come up with, and that's not something that her pension and Social Security cover. So if you are somebody who's going to have a pension income, it is critically important to think about how you're going to supplement that. And even for, the fun things, if you want to take trips, if you want to help your grandkids with college, all of those types of things, those are not going to normally be covered by your pension and Social Security income.
And I'll give everybody one guess. What is the most efficient account to take those lump sum occasional withdrawals from? It would be a Roth account, a Roth IRA, Roth 401k, because you are withdrawing tax-free money. You're not increasing your taxable income and therefore your taxes at the end of the year by taking $10,000 out to go on a trip or whatever the case may be. We love it when people come to us and they're ready to retire, and somehow along the way they've either put some money in a Roth IRA or they had a Roth contribution going at work, so they have a little fund over here, maybe $50,000 or $100,000 or whatever the case may be. They can go get that money and it does not move the needle tax-wise.
Right.
Like it would if you just go in and take that money out of your traditional IRA account in retirement.
It's the same concept that we discussed with Jerry's question earlier in the show about tax diversification. The more tax diversification you can get in retirement, the better. Frankly, the more tax-free income you can have in retirement, the better. But we don't always have the option to get 100% tax-free income in retirement.
Janet, we've been doing the Get Ready for the Future show, I don't know, since heck was a pup almost. It was, it's been a long time, but I think it's important that we remind folks on the show that our purpose here is education. We are education-driven, strategy-based, and team-delivered here at GenWealth Financial Advisors, and we want you to ask your questions on the show because that not only gets your question answered, it helps us to educate other people about financial issues that may be going on in your world, because if they're going on in your world, very likely they're going on in someone else's world, and you could help out people by asking that question. So all you have to do is to text us
It's just striking. We need Scott Inman.
Yes,
that's the deal. We need Scott.
Words. Let's get words going here. Text us at 501-381-5228. 501-381-5228, or you can email us at show@getreadyforthefuture.com. We would love to hear from you, and if your question is a really good one, guess what? You might get the GenWealth Tumbler, the Get Ready for the Future show Tumbler from GenWealth Financial Advisors.
Can I say they're pretty much all good ones? We just pick one a week.
Yeah.
So send it in anyway, and your odds are, all right.
Moving along here, Bobby from my hometown in El Dorado writes, health issues are beginning to take people out of the workforce in their late 40s and 50s. Does it make sense to alter investment location strategies to plan for the possibility of forced retirement? That is a very good question, Bobby, and one that we see from time to time, Janet,
we do.
When people are forced out of work because of their health concerns. That's a huge problem. And if you don't have disability insurance, it's even a bigger problem. And so let's talk about this asset location thing.
Let's talk a little bit about kind of why this is happening. Even if you're healthy, it may still be something that occurs out of your control. 7 out of 10 retirees stop working before age 65. Of those, here are the reasons. 32% are due to downsizing, closure, reorganization, so something that the employer is doing outside of the control of the employee. 31% are due to their health or disability. 13% are because they are caring for a spouse or other family member. So it's still health related, but not their personal health issue. And then 8% lack a skill set or job requirement, something that has changed. John, you and I actually purchased a practice years ago from somebody who had been in the industry for quite some time, and he said, you know, they're changing their requirements and there's another test I would have to take, and I'm just not going to do it anymore.
Yep.
And he was done. So we understand, you know, there are times when you just go, I've done this long enough and I'm out, but it might not have been the original plan. So lots of factors at play here. How do you plan for it financially?
Janet, I want to divert for just a second and talk about a book that was written by a colleague of ours, Rick Edelman, who started one of the largest RIAs in the country, registered investment advisory firms in the country. It's called The Truth About Your Future. And he's a bit of a futurist, and he talks a lot about things that make my head hurt and things of that nature. But he talks in this book about the fact that we are actually evolving as a society, and we're going to have different iterations of our life.
Yeah.
And that when you get to be 55 or 60, where people are running into a problem here of downsizing, closures, and reorg, you have to be able to respond to that. Maybe that means you go back to school and learn a new craft or a new trade or a new skill or whatever the case may be. And you think, well, I'm too old to do that. Actually, you're not. There's a lot there that we could go on. But I want just to make a reference to that book called The Truth About Your Future. It's a great read as long as you can be sort of futuristic in your view of it. But let's talk about this asset location thing, because I do think that it does make some sense to have some investment dollars that are not encumbered by the 59.5 rule and things of that nature.
I feel like we had a little bit of an unintentional theme today of tax diversification, because this kind of ties in with that as well. So just for those who might not know the rules on distribution, you can access money from the 401k at 55 without penalty, but many of those 401ks are not set up for income distribution, and you have to be sure you understand the rules of the plan. But if you've moved that money from a 401k to an IRA and you're trying to get to it before 59.5, that is where the rules change as well. So if you're doing that, you can access it prior to 59.5, but with some very specific rules. You would be tied to what is called an SEPP, substantially equal periodic payments plan, where you have to take the same amount. I don't know why they say substantially equal. It's just equal. You have to take the same amount for 5 years or until age 60, whichever is longer. You do have one opportunity to recalculate that, but that's it. And so the point is, it's very restrictive. It's not very flexible. And so if you're leaving work early, particularly for health reasons for anybody, this is not going to be the best route for you to go. So it's very important to be able to have access to non-qualified assets, because they're not tied to any of the 55 or 59.5 rules that we just talked about, John.
Yeah, and I think, Janet, as you walk through this, I think you do have to have a focus on the traditional 401k plans, IRAs, and things of that nature, but to have what I would call bridge money, that would get you between wherever you have a need up to 59.5. I think that makes a lot of sense. Now, obviously, in a perfect world, you'd have that, and you go, oh, well, maybe I need to start building toward that. What do I need to shoot for? There is no real rhyme or reason to it, but to have some money there that you could bridge over to a 55 or 59.5 situation would be good. And you can oftentimes set up a 401k plan to take money from 55 to 59.5 until you get to your IRA money when the door opens. And can I just say that the government has just always made things way complicated in this. 55, 59.5, 70.5, 72, 75. All these dates and everything only serve to confuse people about what's going on.
Absolutely.
All right.
And there's the bell.
There
Good
it
job
is.
on that. Okay. So I think I'm going to circle back to what we talked about really on several of these questions, and that is the tax diversification in retirement. That I don't think that that's something that many people think about. It happened to be a common theme in several of these questions today, but I think it goes unconsidered through most people's accumulation years, and they're just putting money into whatever plan is available and not thinking about what it's going to be like when they're withdrawing that income in retirement. I would encourage you to take a few moments and look at what income sources are you going to have and what is the tax treatment going to be on those income sources. And if they are all taxable to you, then it is absolutely time for you to sit down with an advisor and walk through how do you get more Roth dollars? How do you get even some non-qualified assets in there to supplement so that you have more flexibility on taxes?
Janet, we've had a lot of tactical questions. What tactic do I need to do with this or that or the other? Let me give you a strategy answer about something. You know, I have a gentleman that works on my car. He is an expert on my type of car. He works on it all the time. I don't take it to anybody else. I have a doctor who I've been going to for a very long time, and he knows me. He knows my health situation. He knows all the things that are going on with me. The most important thing that you can do from a strategic standpoint is to have a relationship with a financial advisor, because just like that car mechanic or just like that doctor, your financial advisor is going to know and understand you and your situation and help you work through the things that are necessary. If you need that type of relationship, give us a call at 866-653-PLAN. We would be more than happy to help you. And that's going to do it for this edition of the Get Ready for the Future show. For the entire GenWealth team and Janet Walker, I'm John Shrewsbury. Have a great weekend.
The GenWealth financial team is available to you 24/7 at info@getreadyforthefuture.com or call our offices at 866-653-PLAN. That's 866-653-7526. You should personally consult a financial advisor before making any investment, and no strategy can assure success. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Independent Advisor Alliance. Independent Advisor Alliance and GenWealth Financial Advisors are separate entities from LPL Financial.